minorities. Uh, Clearly, I'm American. I'm not Ethiopian at all. But I did my first episode and I discussed, I guess I could say, the Ethiopian perspective. I first learned about the conflict. Some friends asked to join my broadcast. I brought them on, and I let them give their piece, and I listen to them, and I support my friends. I'm also, though, very fair, and I want to hear from the other side. So I had a lot of people come into my DMs. A lot of people say, Dave, you got to hear the other side, and you have to listen. And so tonight, I just want to hear I called it the Tigrayan perspective because I want to understand what's going on with the Ethiopian conflict, with the Ethiopian war, what's going on between the TPLF and the Ethiopian government. And I just wanted to get it from people that I don't consider anybody on this stage, and tell me if I'm wrong, I don't consider anybody on this stage a professional. I don't know, like you don't work for the government. If you do, let me know. I try to talk to people on the ground and just get the basics from the people. So that's why I have this broadcast, and a few of you were recommended to me. So let me start with Gab. Tell me just for like a minute who you are, and then let's go to Miaza. Tell me who you are, and then Simon, tell me who you are.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me and give me this opportunity to talk. And I lived here. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm an American, and I lived more than half of my age. So I live in America, and I always go to Ethiopia every now and then. So I was last year I was in Ethiopia, where I was in Tigray in Mekelle when the war started. So I physically I saw the war, what it was, and how it was started. So that's what I'm going to tell the things that you want me to.
Okay, Miaza, tell me a little bit about who you are, and thank you for joining. So I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to ask questions and let you guys talk.
Okay. My name is Moaza. I am from Tigray. I was born and raised in Ethiopia, including in different parts of Ethiopia, including Tigray. I am an international relations specialist. I do advocate against the ongoing genocide. I do not work for any government. I am not a member of any political party, but as a Tigrayan, I do support the TPLF. In addition, I want to address one thing before we dive into the discussion. It's good that you support your friends, and it's good that you listen to them, but you did take a stand. You take a stand even the promotion flyer you had on, it says conflict between TPLF and Ethiopian government. That by in itself is a political statement. The conflict is not between Ethiopia and the TPLF. The conflict is against the people of Tigray. So it's not just why you give a very simplistic view of the genocide happening. The war is against the people of Tigray and the political party, TPLF. When you say it's against TPLF, you're basically using government, talking points, state-and federal government talking points in order to justify the suffering of the innocent people. So I just wanted to address that, but thanks for having us all here.
No problem. I want to say personally that I don't support genocide in any way. So if I put something out there that sounded that way, that wasn't intentional. You have to understand, I'm still learning. So my heart is to understand what's going on. And Simon, so tell me a little bit about yourself, and tell me why you wanted to join. You were one of the people that was requested. So tell me about yourself, Simon.
Yes, thank you for giving us this chance. After I saw your live last time, I instantly DM'd you telling you that's not fair. Whenever you have somebody with especially political ideology and stand, you need to have a perspective of the other as well. Keep in mind, that has nothing to do with politics, but these people that you brought in were purely political. Everything that they talked about, everything they said had to do with politics, when everything that's happening back home is rather humanitarian. It had nothing to do with politics. But coming back to my point, just to say my name is Simon. I'm a Tigrayan, born and raised in Addis, but come from a family of a Tigrayan. As a Tigrayan, I do support the Tigrayan government, and I stand by their, active engagement in terms of resolving and making sure the people of Tigrayans are not suffering. One thing I want to add into what Maaza said is, um, I have zero interest in telling you who your friend should be, but I do
Right.
have an interest in telling you whenever you call someone your friend, it's best to know what their intention, what their ideology, what they stand for, and what they represent. Especially, I would highly recommend not to have somebody that supports, funds, and fights for a genocide. That's not a good friend to have. I'm not here to tell you what kind of friends to have, but I'm here to tell you how to have friends, just to let you know.
Right. And that's fine. I do want to say this. I chose to do this show on my own, you know. I even chose to allow them to come on the first time on my own. You know what I mean? I thought that it would be good for my audience to learn. It would be good for my audience to know. It's a lot of African Americans, a lot of Black people in America that don't know what's going on in Ethiopia. And I just thought it was good to learn and to find out what's going on. And that's why I'm trying to reach people that are, on the ground. So let's try not to make it about my last guest. Let's try not to bring it, because I don't want to argue about them. That's how they feel is how I feel. I feel one way politically, but as a podcaster and a content creator, I just want to share the information. So I'm not here to judge. So that's why I brought everybody on. Let's start with some questions. Or does anybody have a general statement that they want to start with? We're gonna have. You can stay on as long as you like. The last one was 2 hours. So if anyone can't do 2 hours, let me know. I can let y'all get your information in first. And then I can, add other guests because I have a few people in the audience that also want to come up. But does anybody have a general opening statement? Or can I start with my questions? Because I do have questions.
Let's go ahead with your questions. It's better.
Okay. And when I looked it up, the demographics in Ethiopia it's 115 million Ethiopians, roughly. I saw that there were 7 million Tigrayans and 108 million non-ethnic Tigrayans. Does that sound about right to you guys?
So the last consensus that was done in Ethiopia, it's over 10 years old. So these facts that you found online do not really reflect the reality on the ground. But yes, the total population of Ethiopia is expected to exceed 100 million. And the people of Tigray, mind you, as I said earlier, there hasn't been any national consensus done, primarily because the federal government blocked it. Because when you have a true consensus done, what happens is, the budget will be allocated in accordance to the population size and all of that. So because it has a political implication, it wasn't done. But nonetheless, the people of Tigray, we expect that they're around 10 million, but there hasn't been any independent consensus done in the past 10 plus years.
Okay, so maybe roughly 10 million out of 100 million. So that's about 10%, roughly.
Probably. We're not sure. These are just, estimations.
Right. So for my audience that doesn't know, and I'm going to open it up to anyone here, what is the TPLF? Like, remember, we're not just talking to people that know, we're also talking to people like me that are just learning. So what is the TPLF?
TPLF, an abbreviation. It stands for the Tigray People Liberation Front. It's a political party that was established over maybe around 40 years ago. It was initially started by 5 young men and women from Tigray who fought alongside other ethnic groups in Ethiopia who fought against the Derg dictatorship. It was a military and communist government. They fought against that for 17 years and they overthrew it in 1991, I believe. And after that, TPLF, alongside other political parties in Ethiopia, established a government coalition called EPRDF, or the Ethiopian People's Republic Democratic Front, and then through that they have been administering Ethiopia as a whole.
Okay.
But come to 2018, they returned back to Tigray because there were a lot of resistance. There were a lot of issues when it comes to democratization. And so to answer that question, the EPRDF decided that it was best that someone from other political party administers Ethiopia and prepares it for an upcoming national election. And so there was peaceful transition of power to the current Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and TPLF, as they are representatives of the people of Tigray, they went back to Tigray to administer that region.
Okay. So there was a democratic election, and because there was a lot going on, I guess there was a lot of, I guess, issues with like why elect a new prime minister? Like why elect Ami
Ca-
Ahmed?
Um,
Can I?
just because
Excuse.
oh, just because I have to go, I'm gonna answer the first questions, Gary, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
So TPLF, alongside other political parties, including political parties from Amhara, from Oromia, and elsewhere across Ethiopia, have been administering Ethiopia. And they did an amazing and incredible job in terms of, boosting the economy, making sure poverty was decreasing year by year, the life expectancy of Ethiopians generally was improved. When TPLF and other political parties took Ethiopia in 1991, there was literally nothing. There were no lights. I think we only had 2 universities, but throughout their reign, they built over 23 universities. Poverty line has decreased, the life expectancy increased, so life was doing well in terms of economy. But when it comes to democratization, human rights and others, there were legitimate questions, particularly questions that were coming from the Oromia community, and there has been a lot of tension across Ethiopia. So in order to answer to these legitimate concerns that were being raised by different people across Ethiopia, EPRDF, mind you, not TPLF, EPRDF as a political coalition had to make necessary adjustments to move the country forward. And as such, they decided the Dezen Prime Minister, his name is Hailemariam Desalegn, he's not from Tigray, he's not from the TPLF, he resigned because he couldn't really, handle the questions that were coming his way, the uprising, the resistance. So once he resigned, there was a power vacuum, and the EPRDF had to come together and decide and make some adjustments. And one of the adjustments was to select Abiy Ahmed to transition the country, to lead the country for 2 years, so that because every 5 years Ethiopia has to have a national election. So the plan was Abiy Ahmed will administer the country for 2 years, 2 years that remain from the previous prime minister, and after that Ethiopia was due to have a national election so that people could have an opportunity at electing a new prime minister. But
Okay.
Yeah,
but I wanted you to get in. You wanted to say something?
She said it all, but I just want to add some, because every time I hear is a TPLF was just one organization in Ethiopia, one of the organizations. There are too many political organizations. The only thing TPLF was fought for 17 years of struggle to overthrow the dictator communist regime that we had in Ethiopia. And they did a lot of sacrifice. They struggled for 17 years. And then when they got into the capital city, Addis Ababa, which is the central government, what they did is all the political organizations at home and outside, other people were struggling too. So they all together, they just made a coalition of a government, a transitional government. And then the PRDF was established at that time, which is Ethiopian People's Democratic Fronts. So TPLF, just one organization, has just like a seat represented based on the population of Tigray, which is, if it's like, at that time, only Ethiopia, when they hold the government, it was 50 million people only at that time. Now it's 110 million people. So along with the other political organizations, TPLF was administrating, representing at the central government. And all regions, we had 9 regions, regional governments in Ethiopia. So every region has its own government. It's a self-autonomous, it's self-administration. That was the constitution was saying. So TPLF is not alone that administrating or ruling the country. It's along with other organizations, the coalition government. That's what I just want to say, because every people is saying TPLF. TPLF was not alone doing that. What TPLF, yes, had the opportunity because they just struggled for 17 years, so they have the opportunity to be seen very, out in the world as one of the dominant organization. But when it comes to power, they were sharing the same as any organization in the country.
So, Gab, so are you saying that they share power from 1991 to 2018? Like that was when they shared the power?
Exactly.
Okay. Simon, do you agree that that is how the structure was set up, or?
Yeah,
I know.
definitely. One thing to keep in mind is Ethiopia was led by a coalition of several fronts, and part of it is TPLF, and amongst them there were some allied parties that had non-voting rights within the coalition, but to say TPLF only had 25% stake within the party when you talk about party system. But when you talk about governance and government, TPLF had even less say when it comes to the parliament and the House of Federation, because they're both built based on the number and the population size of the people. So when you talk about Oromia had more numbers than the Tigrayan people. So TPLF had 25% say within the party. Any decision that is made within the party, TPLF had 25% say. But when it comes to governance and policies, TPLF even had less because the allocation was based on population size, not party-wise. Just that on.
So is that okay? So maybe am I understanding correctly? Is that what they call ethnic federalism? Was it like the federal system, or
So
no? Because
so
because I'm so
there's a
Simon,
big
it sounds like what you were saying is kind of like here in the United States, right? We have the party system, and we
mhm.
have electoral college, and each state has a certain number of electors. It sounded almost like that, like for the 27 years that the TPLF only had 25% because other areas had other, based on population, a larger
Yes.
percentage. Is that how it was, or did I
So,
miss it?
something like that. Something like that. So whenever the idea of ethnic federalism comes, there's a dogmatic understanding of what the Ethiopian constitution is and how it's formed. Ethiopia has ethnicity over 85 ethnic groups. The Ethiopian um, governing system does not have 80 parties or 80 governing bodies. Rather, it
Okay.
has nine regional powers, and within the nine regional powers had a party called EPRDF that was formed based on four parties from the four biggest regions, and other parties were added as an allies. It has a political explanation why it was done that way. I'm not going to dive deep into that, but just to give you a basic understanding, when people say it was based on ethnicity and ethnical federation, it's just a dogmatic understanding of what identity is. Majority of Ethiopians don't understand how identity works, right? There's identity exists within other identities, so they just assume and just say dogmatically, oh, it was ethnical federalism. It had some sense to it, but it was at 100, like the way it was built was not that way. It's totally different.
Okay.
And I think Maza could explain more to that.
Yeah. First of all, it's not ethnic federalism. It's multinational federalism. You hear the term ethnic federalism because those who are, who support a unitary state want to give this multinational federalism governance a bad connotation, because most of the time in the West, when you talk about ethnicity, tribe, the understanding is really negative, and it's primarily because in the West, the concept of tribe and ethnicity is not really known. It's so because they don't understand it, there is a tendency to look at it from a very negative line. So because of that, you see a lot of people who do not support the people's, nations, and nationalities' rights, self-determination. They will use, this ethnicity just to describe the Ethiopian political arrangement. But what we have is a multinational federalism. And yes, it's literally the same as the federalism government structure we have in the US. You have different states that have autonomy. They have the right to elect their senators and congresspeople. The same happens in Ethiopia. You have different regions, and they elect their local governments. So it's the same with, slight differences.
So I have a
Just to
question.
just to add on that, just to add,
Oh,
add on to what she was saying, even the Constitution itself, what the preamble of the Constitution specifically when it starts to say, so we, the nation and nationality of Ethiopian, form the Ethiopian Federal Republic of Ethiopia. It doesn't say we ethnic, does not say that way. The way the Constitution was built has It's way different than what people assume and think. Majority of these people that claim to say, oh, Ethiopia has an ethnic federalism constitution and all that stuff, haven't even read the constitution. Because if you read the constitution, it's simply so easy to explain and understand how the governance work within Ethiopia.
I have a question, and this is something I've been wondering. What percentage of Tigrayans supports the TPLF? Just kind of in your personal opinion. Let's go with, is it Miaza?
Yeah. So most of the time, you know, a given population support to a political party is demonstrated in elections, right? And election is the most fundamental way of practicing democracy. So in Tigray, although the federal government had unconstitutionally, you know, extended its staying power and cancelled elections that were due to happen.
Wait. Let's not blast past that. You're saying that the federal government unconstitutionally extended its power. Now, are we saying the current Ethiopian government, or are we saying the government, I guess, that was under the 27-year before they elected Abiy Ahmed?
So the current government, Abiy Ahmed's administration, as I told you earlier, Abiy was not elected. Abiy was selected by the coalition political parties. The people of Ethiopia never had an opportunity to elect Abiy. So the EPRDF, because there was resistance coming from different population across Ethiopia, to answer to this resistance, they elected Abiy Ahmed. So they selected Abiy Ahmed, and he was in
the EPRDF.
Exactly.
So wait, so did the EPRDF, would you say they had more influence than the TPLF? Because you were saying it was a 9-party system. Did the EPRDF have more influence?
So TPLF had 25% stake within the EPRDF. Just to explain.
Oh, within
TPLF
the EPRDF was the raw.
And yes, TPLF, and TPLF had 25% stake within it. And the rest 75% was...
So then the entire EPRDF selected Abiy Ahmed.
Exactly, because Abiy Ahmed himself was part of EPRDF.
So was this 2018?
Yes, this happened in I believe it happened in 2018, and Abiy Ahmed was supposed to be in power for 2 years, preparing the country for a national election so that the people of Ethiopia could have an opportunity to elect not only their local representatives, but also the prime minister of the country.
So tell me this. I heard this and help my viewers understand. So he was selected in 2018. He was supposed to be in interim power for 2 years. Then COVID hit, and then they had an election in 2021. So
COVID hit, and Abiy Ahmed postponed the election. He used COVID-19 as an excuse, and he said there is no election. And mind you, this is not a thing that only happened in Ethiopia. This happened in so many other undemocratic countries, mainly in the Latin Americas and in Asia, in Southeastern Asia. But there are 2 types of elections. There is a regional election, just the same way we have state election here in the US, and there is a national election, the same election we have.
Right.
So both elections were due at this kind of like in a different, within maybe weeks difference in between. So the people of Tigray and the government of Tigray as a region, they decided, okay, the federal government has already postponed the election, decided to stay in power unconstitutionally, but the people of Tigray went ahead and they had their regional election and they elected for the TPLF. So during this election,
Wait. It's a lot of processing.
Yeah.
So Abiy Ahmed, interim, I guess, leader or prime minister, elected by the EPRDF.
Yes.
Now, when did Tigray have his own election? I think I was reading the comments and I missed what you said.
September.
But one thing, Mazi, I just want to remind him one thing. It's not about the answers. If you've asked these questions when you had the other guests, you'd have got somewhere. Just to let you know. If you've asked these questions,
that's what I'm saying, Simon.
But you should have though. When you bring a guest as an interviewer, you should do research first, understand the situation, and ask the same question that you're asking us to them. I'm happy that you're asking me these questions.
Fine,
I'm okay with it. But I hope you would ask those questions to them as well. It would have been awesome.
Fine.
But let me let Maza talk. Sorry to interrupt.
I hear you, but let's not judge the facility. because and listen, I have no problem admitting that I'm learning, that I'm coming to understand things, and it's new information.
Yeah.
And
Dave, can I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, here is the thing that maybe you have some understanding of what EPRDF is right now. EPRDF is the organization with a collision of a different organization. They have the same ideology, and they were running, the country. These are four big organizations. One is Oromo, which belongs to Abiy Ahmed. The other one is the South. And the other one, the third bigger one, is the Amhara. Amhara, which is I don't know whether the abbreviation numbers, maybe they can help me, but Amhara Democratic
NDP.
something. Yes.
Amhara National Democratic Party.
And the fourth one is the TPLF, which is representing the Tigray People Liberation. So, look, the Abiy Ahmed came from the Oromo because there was some movements, the Oromo people or youngsters motivated by different kind of political organizations or factions. They've been motivated because you know how third world countries work in politics. They were motivated. The country was really got into a very growing and development in the whole, in the entire of Africa. You know that maybe you might have some information about that. So, but still, people, they want more democratic. People, they want more, more benefits. There was some corruptions. So that was a movement just to improve the democratic process and some economical development to the people who are really underrepresented or people who have unemployed people. That's what they were just. It's not really something the EPRDF was bad or the TPLF was bad or the OPD was bad. It's not something like just for improvement. That was the demand.
Okay.
Then,
Go
good
ahead, Jeb. Go ahead.
Ahmed was selected to continue the government for 2 years because prior he was able to fix this thing. Just found somebody like he can be better. That's what the situation that Abiy Ahmed was selected. I think I'm not.
Okay, Jeb, your phone is breaking. I'm gonna ask another question. We'll give you your Wi-Fi a second to catch up. Okay, I don't want to be sidetracked.
Sorry, do you want me to answer your question? I think you asked me when it happened. You asked me when the elections happened, so I can just give you the timeline. So the national election was supposed to happen on August 29th of 2020. But as I told you, Abiy Ahmed postponed this, and the regional election in Tigray happened on September 2020. And in that election, over 2.5 million people participated, and above 98 of them voted for the TPLF. So this goes
for which one?
They voted for TPLF. 98% of the people who registered for the election in Tigray voted for the TPLF.
Okay, wait. I want to understand. So, what was the election about? What was the? We lost Jeb. What was the election? So, if the entire EPRDF was supposed to have an election for, I'm assuming, all of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Right. Now, I'm trying to think of this as the United States. If you're going to have a national election, and it's postponed, and then one region or one state has an election, what is their election about? If it's only Tigray, that's okay. What was it about?
That's actually a very good question. So as I told you, there are two layers of election that happened in Ethiopia the same way it is here. You have a state level election and you have a national election to elect the prime minister. So while the national election was cancelled, postponed, the state level, the regional election took place. So the people of Tigray elected their local administrators, just
I see.
Our senators here. So earlier you asked how many Tigrayans do you think support the TPLF? And I'm going to address that question. So in Tigray, major people who who have the right to elect, those who are above 18 years and above, they were registered for the election. Over 2.5 million people were registered. Out of this 2.5 million people, Tigrayans residing in Tigray, 98% of them voted for the TPLF. So this goes to show you the very resounding support that TPLF has within the Tigray people.
So 2.5 million people voted out of 10 million people. So roughly, right?
Yes.
No,
And
but keep in mind, there are people that are not allowed to vote, like minors,
Yeah.
mentally.
Right.
So
Right.
when you add those up, in fact, 2.5 million is a lot of people when
Right.
compared to the ratio. Yep. Just to let you know.
And when we say they voted for the TPLF, that means they voted, I guess, along party lines. I'm trying to understand. Does that mean that was there other options that they could have voted for? If
Yeah.
like could they have voted for if it wasn't TPLF?
So actually, like this is a new thing for generally. You know, our political culture is not that high, so you don't have that many political parties with, you know, viable political options and policies. But in Tigray, and you don't find this anywhere else across the region, you have 4 opponents.
Baitona.
They're called Baitona, Salsawiyane, Tigray Independence Party, Asimba. So you have 4 independent opposition political parties. TPLF was the incumbent party, and TPLF was voted against all this.
Okay.
So people had option, but still they went ahead and voted for the TPLF.
So what percentage of Ethiopians supports TPLF? Just
yeah. So here,
and when I say Ethiopians, I mean non-ethnic Tigrayan Ethiopians.
Okay, so here it's very important to highlight the fact that TPLF is not in charge of Ethiopia. So the people of Ethiopia who are not Tigrayans do not really have any constitutional say over TPLF, because TPLF's responsibility is to administer Tigray. And it's only Tigrayans that have the constitutional right to have any kind of say over them. So whether the other Ethiopians support or not support TPLF is out of the equation. But me, as a civilized person, what I believe is if Ethiopians, you know, feel like, oh, we don't support TPLF, the best thing they can do is not force the people of Tigray to abandon TPLF. Maybe they can have, you know, a public education service or what have you, help the Tigrayans understand why TPLF is not good for them. But then generally, I'll just give you an example. This is my house, and you, as my neighbor, you cannot have a right to tell me how good or bad this house is. The only person who gets to decide whether this house is good for me or not is me, right? So the same theory applies here too. Other Ethiopians may or may not support TPLF, but that is not important because TPLF is not interested, nor does it have the right to administer Ethiopia, only Tigray.
So
just to give you a perspective, I just want to add to what you say. So the question is, for instance, when you ask a question like what percent of the United States support the DNC, and for instance, I'm from Maryland, and you ask what percent of Marylanders support the Maryland DNC, if that makes sense, right? So it's 2 different things. Like when you talk about the DNC, you're talking about the coalition of all the Democratic Party from all the states that have created the national DNC. But when you ask about the Maryland DNC, it's specifically to Marylanders, and nobody from Arkansas or Texas can come and tell us, hey, you should rather vote for this, because that's not their, you know,
right.
They don't have the right to do that.
Okay, so Abiy Ahmed is the prime minister right now. That election occurred in 2020. Did it happen, or did it happen in 2021?
It happened in 2021.
Right around what month?
I can check it. My bad. So I think it happened around June, it happened on June 21st. And mind you, the election took place.
But before you do, can I say something about the election?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna mention something
because I was in Mekelle, you know, like my other told you that there is a regional election and there is a federal election.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the Ethiopian constitution says the national, regional states have the power, more than the central government. You know that's the constitution. The regional states are the one they represent their people to send to the central government, not the federal government represents the states. That's in the constitution. Can you hear me?
Yes, I heard you.
Oh.
You said that the central government does not administer the states and their representatives.
Like this. Let me just give you an example. I live in Minnesota. state of Minnesota, if they want to elect their governors, do they have to get permission from the president?
No.
Can you answer for me that?
No.
No. The same thing. The same thing in Ethiopia. The states, the regional states have their own autonomous, and they also have their self-administration. They can elect their own government. That's what Tigray region did. And I was there. I am not a TPLF member. I'm not any member. I'm not any political members, but I was an observer. I was told to observe the election in the place where I live in my community. As I said before, I heard it's 2.5. It was 2.7 people they voted. 2.7 people voted. They did their mask like a civilized people. They did everything to protect. They were using distance. And it was that was my first time that I really had that opportunity to see. It was incredible. People were so civil. They just doing their vote, and they were so happy to elect their own governor in the region. That's what they did. So TPLF got the major vote. There were 4 political organizations competing, running the elections, including with TPLF. So the people elect TPLF. So that's the people you have to accept the people's vote.
So I have a question about the general election in 2021 where Abiy Ahmed was elected. Did Tigray to participate or no? So let me, since Simon hasn't said much, let me ask Simon, and then I can come back to Meaza.
But before that, we can say some background before the election, though.
Let me
before
respond.
the election of
2 minutes.
2021.
2 minutes.
I'll
Go
get
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Before we say about the election of Abiy Ahmed of 2021, the Constitution says you cannot postpone election by something like it was not written in the Constitution, even with the COVID. There is no any kind of mitigation or any kind of way to postpone the election. It didn't say anything in the Constitution. So Abiy Ahmed was supposed to do on time for the election. He postponed it for 2 months, and then he changed his mind. He did something, to postpone more and more. And the people of Tigray said, well, we cannot postpone ours because the 5 years of government was expiring. And the Tigray people, they don't need an expired government. They have to elect their brand new government. But Ethiopia was, the central government was expired. And people, they didn't have a legitimate government at that time. So the Tigray people said, well, we don't have a legitimate central government or a prime minister because there was no any elected prime minister based on the Constitution. That's what I just want to say. Some information to you.
Okay, go ahead.
So in regards to the national election, there are a couple of facts to keep in mind. First thing is what my friend was referring to. The Constitution had certain aspects to it in terms of postponing election, and had a deadline. It specifically states the election has to be held before September 30th. And once that day passes, it means the government, that is the incumbent government, dissolves, right? But it had 3 options in terms of amending and changing the constitution and seeing if there's any other viable options, which TPLF multiple times, as the government of Tigray has suggested. One of them is to dissolve the parliament and form a transitional government. The other one was to have a national dialogue, discuss, including every single party within the country, Instead of doing this, what Abiy Ahmed did was incarcerate majority of the prominent Oromo leaders, some Tigrayan leaders as well, and some from the Mahara region, and some, he basically arrested a majority of the prominent political leaders rather than having them within the political discussion of postponing this election.
So wait, Abiy Ahmed did that. He arrested.
Yeah, he arrested Jawar Mohammed, who was one of the biggest political moguls in Oromia, including Bakala Garba, who was another huge political leader. As much as I do not support even Iskander Naga, who was an urbanist that was fighting for the people in Addis Ababa and saying that he would run for mayor in Addis and try to make sure, you know, the rights of the people of Addis Ababa is respected. He was arrested. Majority of the Mogul huge political elites and political leaders were arrested because they were basically a threat to him. And the only people that he could arrest were the leaders of the Tigrayans. It's not because he couldn't. I mean, it's not because he didn't want to. He just couldn't. When he tried to go against the choice and the voice of the people of Tigrayan, that's when the main reason why the war is happening is him trying to kind of appoint political leaders that are not accepted and non-wanted leaders for the Tigrayans. So when we talk about the general election, these are the facts to keep in mind. He illegally postponed, meaning after September 30th, he didn't have the right to postpone the election, let alone be the leader of the country. And that's what the stand of TPLF was. TPLF, and as a Tigrayan government, specifically stated, once September 30 passes, the Ethiopian constitution states, if there is no election held, the current government dissolves, and the Tigrayan people that have voted and have set their own government will not recognize the federal government as a government, which the constitution specifically states as well. So these are the facts that you need to keep in mind when it comes to the national election. And another thing to keep in mind is Tigrayans, which, as you mentioned, hold 10% stake within the national or the federal entity, never participated. Majority of Oromia didn't participate. Some people within the southern part didn't participate. Only about 53% of Ethiopians participated in this election. So this makes it illegitimate. Forget about the fact that it was held under no constitutional mandate, it just was not valid to have.
Okay, so wait, I have a question. So I'm looking at my notes, and mind you, guys, I'm getting information from all types of sources. I'm trying to figure out which question I want to ask next. Okay, so I'll ask an off-the-cuff question. So are everyone on the panel, just yes or no, do you believe that the current Ethiopian government led by Abiy Ahmed is illegitimate? Miaza, yes or no?
Yes, he's illegitimate.
Okay.
He is not legitimate.
All right, so then I have to ask this question. I've heard that the party that was in power before, I guess, 2018, right, the last 27 years, favored Tigrayans, favored the TPLF, and was to non-ethnic Tigrayans. I know I see, phone calls are coming in. We lit a fire. But no, let me just ask your opinion. Do you believe that the prior, I guess, administration or the prior government that was in power was oppressive to non-Tigrayans? And let me
I'll
go.
let Maaz answer. I just want to make one statement.
Let's go with Simon first. Go ahead, Simon.
Okay, I'll answer this question. I'm going to go ahead and answer it. But before I answer the question, I want to correct your statement. There was no